Vice President Professor Yemi Osinbajo, the President of the Senate Ahmed Lawan, Speaker of the House of Representatives Femi Gbajabiamila, members of Cabinet and the diplomatic corps, among other top dignitaries, arrived in National Arcade, Abuja, to commemorate the 2023 Armed Forces Remembrance Day wreath-laying ceremony. As is tradition, President Muhammadu Buhari arrives to preside over the solemn ceremony, which begins with an inspection of guards, accompanied by the Commander Guards Brigade. The annual event, which is a mark of honor, solidarity and respect, is in appreciation of the sacrifices of members of the armed forces of Nigeria. The significance of this event is further expressed in the prayers offered by both Christian and Muslim clergies.
To our fallen heroes, grant eternal rest to them.
Victory over our avowed enemies. Amen.
Then the wreath-laying ceremony. The President leads other dignitaries, including the Vice President, leadership of the National Assembly, service chiefs, among others, as they march one by one to lay a wreath on the tomb of the unknown soldier as a mark of respect for the fallen heroes. After a minute's silence, 3 volleys of 21-gun salute were fired. Accompanied by heads of various governments, military chiefs, as well as top government officials, the President signs the Anniversary Day Register. Moments after, the President released the White Pigeons, an act which connotes harmony. Cheers erupt as one of the birds perched on the head of one of the officers. The President receives a national salute. In a chat afterwards, the Chief of Defense Staff expressed optimism, particularly ahead of the general elections.
I have been discussing with the IG, and of course we have also made contingencies. Should we be required to give support to the police as the election is conducted? I think for Nigerians, you are well, rest assured that the armed forces remain solidly behind the police to be able to give them all the support that is required.
One of the widows shares her concerns.
It has started taking a longer time to compensate the family. Before it would take a shorter while, but now it takes a longer while. So families have to wait, keep waiting or keep calling or try to cross the line. Mine was between a month or 2, but some is stretching to 9, going to a year now, which is really not telling good on them. But I feel everybody is trying their best to do what they can do. Hopefully they get to settle people.
A feeling of indebtedness to the entire armed forces and the Nigerian Legion is palpable here, but it transcends beyond all of these feelings to actual expectation that the government will prioritize the welfare of the Nigerian army and also look towards surmounting this critical issue of security in the nearest future. From the Eagle Square, Gloria Umezuki, Channels Television News.
A very good morning to you all. Welcome to Sunrise Day today. I'm Chamberlain Usol.
Good morning from Abuja. I'm Maokpe Ogun-Yusuf.
Indeed, it's a beautiful week as it opens today, being Monday. Good morning and welcome. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo.
And just one day after that celebration that you just saw, I'm Ayo Makinde. Good morning. Welcome. It's January 16.
Well. Security is still a thing. So, the Armed Forces Remembrance Day, when that is usually commemorated, but you have to ask yourself several questions across the country in terms of how that resonates with every citizen out there. So that is a huge component of this entire thing. Remember what they fought for to keep us all together. That's why towards the end there, you heard Gloria talk about security, which is still a thing in this country at the moment. Look, there are several components to this scenario at the moment, because even right here, back home here, so many challenges tugging away at the heart of this country, all about security. So fighting to keep the territorial integrity of the country lofty. We appreciate Nigerian Army and all the security agencies who do what they can. In fact, many lay down their lives for us all. But we have to do way much more than we are doing at the moment. It wasn't a very good weekend for a lot of people, and for several reasons at that. The Catholic Church that was attacked in Niger State, the priest was burnt, and then the scenario in Katsina State where 4 people or thereabouts were kidnapped who were going to worship in a church. So attacking places of worship, these 2 scenarios, if you just cast your mind back, they all come across as though they are premeditated. Because, I mean, much as in Niger State, the priest had survived the bomb attack about 12 years ago, because, I mean, he had repelled, those attacks had tried to happen before. In fact, they happened, and then he was part of those who repelled a lot of it. And it just raises so many questions as to what we are doing or seem to be doing about these things, because it just appears as though somebody somewhere seems to be pulling the strings, trying to pitch people against themselves, pitch the country against themselves, the citizens against themselves. But there will be questions as to what the capacity of security agencies, how we do these things, because we know that if you just go about there trying to protest as a peaceful citizen, we know they're so predictable. We know how security agencies will respond. So it just looks as if they respond when they want to, and it just doesn't send a good signal. You can imagine if there were to be reprisals. Can we contain those kind of scenarios in this country? So will we allow the labor of our heroes go in vain? I think we just need to sit back and introspect. Much more now that we're heading towards this election where several components, I mean, there are several scenarios which we can't even highlight enough in this opening sequence. But there is a huge question mark and a huge challenge on security. But ultimately, a lot lies at the feet of the CNC.
Indeed, Chamberlain, I think that last line summarizes it up. It lies at the feet of political leadership. Yesterday was Armed Forces Remembrance Day, as we've highlighted, and how do I put it now? A lot of ceremonies went on across the states. Prior to that, everyone was wearing the emblem. Well, not everyone. Mostly people in government and maybe political leaders were the ones wearing the emblem. And people were, how do I put it now? A lot of people were wondering, where can I get the emblem? Maybe a lot of people were in. So maybe some people were not even concerned. Like, do they even know what the emblem means? Do they know what it signifies? And there needs to be a lot more education on that. Excuse me, this year I had to consciously look out for the emblem. Turns out that you couldn't even get it in many places. I think only at the airport and at the Hilton would you see that the emblem was up for sale. And that ought not to be the case. There needs to be an awareness of this in our daily lives as much as possible. If you're going to a supermarket, for instance, where you get your day-to-day groceries, it should be there. We're going to the mall, it should be there. There needs to be a lot more awareness on the part of the Nigerian public and the Nigerian people about the sacrifices that our people, that our men in uniform, make so that we can go about our own activities on a normal. Yes, it's not perfect. There's still so many challenges, as also highlighted in that report. The families of those whose loved ones have, paid the supreme price, every day they live with that reminder. And I don't think that it'll be too much for us to be reminded just a few weeks in the year that there are people who pay the price so that we can move about swiftly. Now, whilst we honor them and honor their memory and continue to, put pressure on political leaders to do what's right, because the many challenges that we have to ask, are we really making progress The United States fought the Vietnam War for many years, and people were asking questions. Americans were wondering, when was this war going to end? From one president to the other, they knew that the war was something that they were failing at, yet they concealed it from the American people because nobody wanted to admit defeat. At the end of the day, I think they had to, because of the work that the press, the media did in that country. So as media people, we also have to ask critical questions, whether we're really asking the tough questions of our political leaders, whether what needs to be provided for our, our military people have been provided. We need to ask questions of the top military brass. Because, well, at the end of the day, they receive orders. Orders are orders. If your seat says you go, you go. You don't ask questions. But sometimes I do know that they are also in a position to provide advice. How critical are the advice, or how, how forthcoming and how frank are the advice that they give, especially given the scenario? Is it taken to by the political elite? Is it, something that is listened to? Or do we have a situation of collusion? Because I do believe that there's so much that can be done, in our security system. We've made some progress in some parts of the country, but instances like this, like the killing we saw in Niger State, like the killings we saw in Katsina State, these sort of scenarios put a dent to the work that is being done. So much more needs to be done, starting from starting from our police now. Starting from our police, because where the military has taken over the duty that our police is supposed to do, and, there is absolutely it doesn't look like we're making any attempt to re-equip the primary barrier for security. There are big questions to be asked about our sincerity to ensuring that, we really do right by our men in uniform.
Yes, indeed, Markwe and Chamberlain, I am on all fours with you in your commentary, as we open the program this morning. And the celebration is, remarkable for so many reasons. I wish, the celebration of the Armed Forces Remembrance Day this year was remarkable for the right reasons, but it's a reminder of so many things, that have still not been achieved in terms of, using your words, doing right by our men in uniform. First of all, let's commend them for the work that they do to keep us all safe, to ensure that we sleep with our two eyes closed at night. We can't commend them enough. We can't talk enough about the sacrifices that they make. And of course, we must also talk about the pockets of gains that have been made in recent times, in the number of, Boko Haram insurgents that have surrendered, according to the Nigerian military, in the northeast, in the gains also that we see in some parts of the northwest as well. But of course, the issues remain. And what are the issues? Why have we still not seen progress, especially, the progress promised at the start of this administration? Part of the commentary is about, lack of equipment. Part of the commentary is that perhaps, the military needs to review its strategy. And you're right when you asked what, counsel the top leadership of the military is offering the political elite, is offering those in the corridors of power. So these are some of the things that, we should also talk about, we should highlight. There's also the talk of corruption, how perhaps the war against insurgency and banditry has been turned into a merchandise of some sorts. And, this is reminiscent of the call, the task by the vice president, months ago rather, towards the end of 2022, that there must be some sort of accountability in the military procurement process. Perhaps then again, when all of these are combined with the review of the strategy of the military, perhaps then again we'll now see the progress in the war against insurgency. But we must also not round off this commentary without highlighting the brutish, unprovoked attack against worshippers in Katsina, the mindless killing of the Reverend Father in Niger State. It is really, really heartbreaking. As Chamberlain rightly said, perhaps some people are pulling the strings. What was the offense of these people? What did they do? You know, what sin did they commit to warrant such, you know, end? Especially the Reverend Father. It really places a question mark. If we're going to hold leadership to account, it places a question mark on the promise of Mr. President at the beginning of his administration. You know, that popular line where he said that he belongs to everybody and then he belongs to no one. And then we must pause to ask or ponder on how it was quick for this administration to rein in on what you would term insurrection in the southeast early on in the administration, to rein in on same in the southwest. But it's been difficult, intractable to do same in Nigeria's north.
You know, I just have questions. I mean, you all have said everything that needs to be said. I just have questions. I mean, we've talked about the fact that it's Armed Forces Remembrance Day. Most certainly there is a history to that date, which goes to the history of Nigeria itself. The Nigerian Civil War that ended in '68 isn't far from the mind. So the question that a number of questions on my mind. Why should anybody want to join the military, the army, any of the military armed forces, if they are not sure of how they will be taken care of if and when any of their relatives pay the ultimate price? What have been the findings of the Senate Committee and House of Reps Committee on the Army and other security apparatus of government within the National Assembly to ensure that we do right by those who give their lives, literally, to servicing this nation? We say the labors of our heroes past shall never be in vain. Is that a statement or a creed for us as a nation? When we celebrate January 15, is it just a date or a symbolic date for us to pay attention to the things that need paying attention to, so that what happened to the Catholic priest doesn't happen, what happened to the fellow in Katsina doesn't happen, and what happened in Imo State to that candidate who is vying for office in the National Assembly does not happen? These questions beg answers, and Malpa, you rightly put it when you said we need to ask the military some questions. Not just the military, but all of the security apparatus of state, because today we are talking about the military, and we are not under a military era. But guess what? We're using soldiers for police work. What happened to the functions of the police? How come we are not hearing as much of the police as we ought to be hearing of them? Too many questions this morning, but we're running out of time. Chamberlain.
Yeah, so we'll just go right ahead and take a look at some of the dailies in just a moment. Let's take a look at the state of the nation. New Telegraph leads with that this morning. None can build logical Nigerian narrative around one religion. Ascribed to Bakare urges citizens to reject voter bias, political merchants. Says nation confronted by regional ethnic memory joggers. Inadequacy of old political order. Others fueling obedience movement, momentum. Oh, okay. Christian elders warn against provocative utterances. And then at the bottom strip, Armed Forces Remembrance Day. Democracy Day has come to stay, Irabo, as Buhari, Osinbajo service chiefs attend service. Governors hail foreign heroes' gallantry. We share your pains, Ugwani tells fallen heroes' wives. Well, the thing about some of these things is that I'm not sure, the fallen heroes' wives feel that, because many of them, some of the dailies are still talking about how they're going through harrowing experiences. And then in some of the other countries, how, look, there's just a lot going on. If people need to identify with the poppy, need to identify with the essence, you need to first of all ask them, why are they not even wearing it? Maybe if you start from there, then you might just get a lot more response, because to many, it comes across as though security agencies in this country just seem to be, there's this us and them. They seem to be there to protect the ruling class and not the people across board. So when you keep brutalizing the citizenry and you want them to go ahead and be on all fours on the same page with you, that will be hard. So the public relations, it will not just start by some of these things, it will start by their actions towards the citizenry. They need to understand it is the citizens who you are there for. They are the ones that you should owe your allegiance to. So, you know, we can't say these things enough, but that's just scratching the surface. That's New Telegraph this morning.
Well, Daily Trust also focuses on Armed Forces Remembrance Day. Their lead story says 2023, military pledges defense for democracy. That's what you see on the front page of Daily Trust this morning. It has come to stay. That's according to the CDS, talking about democracy. Buhari or Shibaju, CJN, governors hail fallen heroes on Remembrance Day. Widows of fallen heroes lament hardship. You know, those are two lines that should not be going side by side. You cannot be hailing fallen heroes. They cannot see you. They are dead. They paid the supreme price. The people who can see you are their family members. They're the ones who would, by the way you treat them, know that you're really hailing the labor of their loved ones who have fallen. So it's such an oxymoron right now to be reading this two story. Buhari or Shibaju, CJN governors hail fallen heroes on Remembrance Day, and then say the next line saying, widows of fallen heroes lament hardship. I mean, that doesn't go together, please. Wike commends Buhari's effort in defeating Boko Haram. It's a page 4 read for you. You have all of the details right there. You find the political leadership, and on the other hand, a widow who is standing at the cenotaph, you know, and the emotions there, quite raw. Look at the bottom there. Bandits burn Catholic priest, shoot another in Niger. Just some of the challenges that we've highlighted here already, and we'll be highlighting, of course, much later in the program as well. Tinubu appoints Jega Abdulaziz media aides. Okay, you might want to read. We'll ask, which Jega is that? Is that the former... read the story. Don't jump to conclusions. Page 11 is where you will find the story. Is that the former National INEC? I'm not going to, you know, I'm not going to reach that conclusion until I have flipped to page 11 of the paper. I'll urge you to do the same. Because sometimes that will be there so that you can wonder as well.
Before they accuse you of spreading fake news.
Exactly. So flip to page 11. Unclaimed dividends in Tier 1 banks increased by over 5 billion naira. I'm not going to be a part of this year is my year. I'm going to claim my unclaimed dividends. And if you're like me, please don't let government take over your money. Go and fill your forms and claim make it part of your New Year resolution. It's your money, for God's sake. Go and claim your unclaimed dividends. A very sad incident happened in Plateau State. The FRS is reporting that 16 died, 83 injured in truck accident conveying PDP supporters in Plateau. Yeah, this happened. So while we're dealing with insecurity on one hand, we also have to talk safety, because all of the people, the numbers which we have compiled that we know of, that insecurity claimed over the weekend, is not up to what, you know, safety or lack of it has claimed in Plateau alone. 16 people die in one fell swoop. 83 injured over something that could have been avoided. Think about it. Let's leave it there for Daily Trust.
It was a really sad weekend, Amalkwe, with an accident also occurring on Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, and was it 3 or 4 deaths recorded in that one as well. What a sad weekend. May the souls of the departed rest in peace, and our condolences to families of loved ones. Well, this Nigeria is what I have for you next this morning, and it also leads with a sad incident, of course, initially touched on, but yet again, here it is. Grief as bandits burn Catholic priests to death. Niger police in manhunt for killers as Can condemns killing. As the second rider, in Katsina, terrorists invade church, abduct 25 worshippers. So it's 25 worshippers that were abducted in Katsina State. We hope that security agents will move swiftly and get the captors arrested, and of course rescue the victims, as we've seen in the Edo train attack, where we've seen more rescues of victims who were kidnapped some weekends ago. Take a look at this one as well. At the bottom strip, fresh crisis in varsities. FG's delay to conclude renegotiation agreement sparks row. SANU kicks as AGF plans to pay Konua withheld salary. Well, that conflict is still brewing, and it looks as if it may form some talking point in the coming days. And let's go to the right-hand corner of this Nigeria this morning to see some stories that will also catch your attention. Senate probes alleged tax imposition on Adamawa residents by soldiers, military silent. It's a page 4 read. I'm sure you'll be interested in the details as I am. And this one also is on insecurity. 12 victims. That's the good news. Departure from what we started with. 12 victims of Edo train attack rescued and recuperating in hospital. And before we exit this Nigeria, above the nameplate you'll find this one. NCDC confirms 42 new cases of COVID-19. So it's not yet Uhuru. Don't let your guard down. COVID-19 is still somewhere around. So let's do all we can to protect ourselves. Stay safe. Ayo.
The leadership newspaper is next this morning. And guess what you have on the front page? Not very pleasant, but it is what it is. As insecurity in Southeast escalates, gunmen kill 37 police officers in 52 attacks. That's some research if you want to find out. The story is on page 10. Imo records highest attacks and casualties. We can't tell exact number of policemen killed, according to Ebonyi Command. CSOs, security experts, blame situation on unemployment, marginalization, hunger. Don't know if that should be an excuse. Right above that one, in that strip, Armed Forces Day, PMB, governors, IGP pay tributes to fallen heroes. The story is on the inside pages of the paper. That's the leadership newspaper today.
Well, take a look at the Abuja Inquirer. Black Sunday, 8 crushed to death on Abuja Highway. Plateau APC declared mourning over 16 PDP supporters. That's why it wasn't exactly a happy weekend for a lot of people. And then above that lead story, 12 years after surviving bomb blast, terrorists burn Catholic priests alive. It's just really sad. But, well, you got several other scenarios.
Yeah, so, I mean, those are incidences in Plateau, in Abuja, and Buki just highlighted Lagos. I mean, safety incidences.
Almost all over
or
the
lack
country.
of safety, lack of safety being applied, because 8 crushed to death, that could be avoided. 16 people having an accident, totally avoidable. Really, we need to do something. I don't know what we'll do, but we need to do something about it. Leadership is next up here, and look at what they have. As insecurity in Southeast escalates, gunmen kill 37 police officers in 52 attacks. So they're compiling all of the attacks that have happened over a period. Imo records highest attacks, casualties. We can't tell the exact number of policemen killed. That's according to the Ebonyi Command. CSOs, security experts, blame situation on unemployment, marginalization, hunger. That's also there. I guess that will be a repeat of what I already took. Let's leave it there for leadership newspapers.
Yeah, I mean, that also ends a look at some of the dailies here this morning. We're back in just a moment. Do stay with us.
This is what they call 21st century. When my customer say I want to use POS, I will just bring out my phone, open the application, use this, press this code. I don't have anyone that using POS anymore.
With some of the issues that you have already heard us raise this morning, killings here and there, attacks here and there, added to the Armed Forces Remembrance Day, one wonders exactly what the significance of all of this is, particularly as we build up to the general elections. Scattered issues or connected issues. Colonel Stan-Labo joins us this morning. He is a former Army officer. Thanks for joining us this morning.
I appreciate it.
I don't know how to greet you Happy Remembrance, the Armed Forces Remembrance Day, but I think that is something in order.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah. Why not?
Do you think the leaders across board, at all levels in the country, do you think the reality of the significance of the Armed Forces Remembrance Day hits us well from time to time, especially when we commemorate it?
If I'm to give you an untainted response, I would say, frankly speaking, our leaders don't really care about it. We don't really feel or take serious the fact that some guys laid down their lives for us to be where we are today. I say this from a point of knowledge, having been able to be quite close to some leaders by virtue of some little appointments I had while in the military. It should take a while for us to emulate what goes on in the Western world and be able to show enough appreciation to our veterans community.
But it's been so many years. I mean, this whole thing started, I think, in 69, 70. I don't know what year particularly. I don't remember particularly what year we started using the Armed Forces Remembrance Day commemorating the day on January 15. But it's been quite a number of years since that time.
Yeah,
and for you to say that the political leaders don't care.
Yeah, it's still more of lip service. It's still more of,
so it's routine.
Yes. 15 January, okay. There's going to be a parade, release of boats, okay, fine.
What would you have expected that would happen before or in the build-up to the day?
Less of the ceremonies and actual attention to the welfare of those who are still alive, and for those who are dead, their families who are left behind, their children, their wives, and so on.
You don't think that's been done at all?
That's why I say less of the ceremonies. All emphasis is on the ceremony. If you are a stranger to Nigeria and you watch the ceremony, you say, oh, this country really takes care of its veterans. Where do I start from? Is it healthcare or what? You know, you could just go and count it. As an officer, excuse me, sorry. As an officer, I know how much I spend on my health care. Because, I mean, after having been to 4 international operations, definitely you come out to some ailments. Who cares, really? Somebody will say, oh, no, look, but to have a defense, what's it called, this national, what do you call this, healthcare arrangement. How we have a defense healthcare scheme, this, that, and that. Yes. How well funded is the defense welfare scheme? As we speak, how much attention is paid to people who have issues that have got to do with their organs? Liver, heart, mentioning the internal organs, where we really have major problems, and which in most cases is with senior citizens. The drugs for all this are so expensive that they are hardly on the shelf of military pharmacies in military hospitals. Because they'll tell you, no, you see, we cannot spend this much money on just 5 or 10 people in this hospital who have such ailment. This money can cater for nearly half of the people and so on. If you say there is health care, if you're talking about malaria, fever, and headaches, yes, the military is really taken care of. How many veterans on dialysis is the military picking their bills? Or let me say the government. Let me not keep hammering on the military. How many? These are areas where you have capital-intensive expenditure that eats deep into the guy's pension.
But, you know, what about healthcare for those still serving? If you know, expensive healthcare is not covered for retired, what about those still serving? Is it covered somewhat in their package? What can you tell us about that?
Yes, my dear, and I will explain it this way. While I was still serving, I never thought I ever had a health issue. Because, I mean, what issue would I have? Is it not the normal headache and malaria and so on? How many times do I go to the military hospital? It is when maybe you are taking care of your kids and so on, and in most cases, we as officers, you just register with the nearest good hospital within your environment, and once in a while, madam goes there for one thing or the other because of the children. How many of us in our 30s, 40s actually feel sick enough? You begin to patronize military healthcare seriously on retirement, when you begin to see how much you are beginning to spend on drugs, and you say, but I think there's an arrangement like this, and you try to, you know, explore the opportunities in such arrangement, only to discover, no, it's not what you think
like
it
that.
is.
my apologies, Colonel. I like that Bukola brought in the perspective of not just those who have passed,
yes,
but those who are still active now. Correct. How significantly do you think that plays on their performance on the job? Because, I mean, looking at the front pages of the papers, and something that my colleague Markwell referenced the other time, of us using the police, pick up military officers, soldiers, as policemen on the streets. So one wonders, how do you think what you've been saying plays on the psyche and the performance of the officers on the field?
If there is anything I would say that goes on right now in the field, is the fact that those who are still serving are actually looking at what we are going through and trying to see how they can prepare themselves for it. They'll tell you, forget all the rhetorics you read about, oh no, look, forget all those paperworks. We've written some of those write-ups to be read by big men on the, so it's not really a big deal. The reality is, how much preparation are you putting in towards your retirement, which probably is going in the next 4 years, 5 years, or 6 years.
So you think that what you're saying now, essentially you're saying that the soldiers may not put in all of their best if they are not certain of what the retirement, their retirement looks like?
I wouldn't say they will not put in all their best, because I keep falling back to in my own case, I was so consumed by my job. I enjoyed doing my job, such as even when I look at people within my constituency who were now out of the job and who were suffering one way or the other. Before you know what, I had gotten so much consumed again by the job. And I played my role very well. Just, I want to believe, the same way a good number of soldiers out there are doing. But the fact remains that, and in most cases, it's your wife that always reminds you.
Speaking of preparation, Colonel Stan-Labo, from time to time, we see that the military inaugurates housing schemes for officers. You know, we've seen some of that in certain parts of Lagos in the recent past. We've seen in the northwest of the country in recent times as well. How much of a commonwealth is that for men of the service, to the extent that when they exit, you know, the armed forces, they can come away with, you know, an accommodation as evidence of having served, committed their life to the force?
Yes, sure. In that aspect, I would say the military is trying, but they could do better. Why am I saying they could do better? The house I own right now in Abuja is from one of these schemes. Okay? Even though, of course, I did some improvements to bring it up to my taste. But I would say I got that house through the military. And I'm really so happy about that. But as I was retiring, I still had a few millions more to pay. You know, you pay on these things instrumentally. As at the point of retirement, I still had a few millions more to pay. When you deduct that from whatever my gratuity was, it was a huge chunk. That's why I'm saying they could still do better. And if you want to ask me, I would say, look, some level of percentage could be taken off, especially at that point where the guy is now retiring. We'll look at what is left for him to pay and say, well, statutorily, we'll take off 25%. Statutorily, we'll take off 40% of whatever is left. So that the guy now pays, instead of 4 or 5 million, he now sees himself paying 2 or 1 million.
But is this selective? Because we see that some retired military officers are languishing in poverty. They have not gotten their retirement benefits. How much more to talk about accommodation? So how does it go round?
What goes around? The housing thing?
Yeah, the housing scheme.
It's optional, mind you, my dear. It's optional. The scheme is here. Pick up the forms if you're interested. Fill it out. You get a slot. You go, you pick where you want your house to be, wherever you want to stay, whether it's Ibadan, Lagos, or where. You pick. And then eventually, you are paying gradually, and your house is being prepared for you. It's optional. Some people might have already had their own private plans, and so they are not ready to commit whatever their resources coming in from the military.
But then is it made affordable for you, you know, based on, how do I describe it now? You know,
based on my earnings?
Yeah, based on, you know, your service, your commitment, and your diligence throughout the service.
That's why I have said it could be better. They could improve on the conditions. To me, I still think it is too high.
Just one other thing that will want to be much better before I bring in my colleagues from Abuja is the insecurity or security situation. I really don't, I wish we didn't have to talk about it, but it's the reality that we have to face every day. On the front pages of the dailies, you find gunmen do this, bandits do that, and there was an attack in Imo and all those things. So one is wondering, do you think we are asking the right questions or taking on the right issues with the right set of people as far as these issues, like this pockets of issues, but most certainly chagrin at the same time?
I don't know where to start in answering that. I'm always noted for placing the blame on the doorstep of the government. But in most cases, we have no option but to do that. Well, all I would just say in summary is that if there's anything we've got to do, the earlier we start it, the better. If there is any rejig that needs to be done again, the earlier we start it, the better. More so that we're barely less than 40 days to the elections, fast coming now. And the security situation calls for some attention, going by what's happening in the last 1 or 2 weeks, you know, and so on. I think the defense is very much conscious of the fact, the defense headquarters is conscious of the fact that they need to really buckle up.
You know, one of the most disturbing, if I can put it that way, is the fact that there are some of these things that seem that they were going to happen and we were duly notified. For instance, the case of the representative in Imo State. December last year, there was that notice that they put out saying, look, there is this thought in some quarters that this fellow was going to be attacked. And then we hear that that same attack took place over the weekend. And in the letter they put out initially, they had petitioned, I think it was the IG, saying, look, there's a fellow who made this public declaration in public, and everyone knew about it. And it would seem like nothing was done about it. As a matter of fact, one of the things that these CUPP and the rest of them said was, look, we expected that this fellow would have been picked up, no arrest had been made and all of that. So one wonders exactly who should be answering what questions, because this is one, and as you said, we're building up to the elections. Whether it is politically motivated or not, it is a case of insecurity, and it is something that the security officers should take charge of.
In matters of this sort, like, you know, the police is a lead agency. And I expect that the IG should feel very concerned when it comes to matters as this, more so when somebody came out to make a public pronouncement. You know, like a good number of colleagues of mine would say, we expected such a guy to have been picked up, you know, interrogated, and so on. But you just left him to carry on with his impunity, and here we are. And of course, like, you know, looking 8 years back, I say 8 years because I believe the administration is already winding up. That has always been the nature of this administration. I'm sorry to say, nothing is taken serious. There's this lackadaisical attitude towards anything, whether it borders on security, the economy, or what have you, and so on. You advise, nobody takes to it. In fact, nobody even acknowledges your letters when you send it, carrying advice to certain offices and so on. The whole place is just so relaxed. It's like nobody is actually in control, and so on. So things like this, I expected the Inspector General of Police to be tapping on someone and said, hope you heard that. Merely saying that the fellow knows what to do. This is an administration where nobody checks anybody. We came in to fight corruption. We are even more corrupt than those who came to fight. All sorts of funny things are happening. It has gotten to a point that you no longer blame the government. You only pray for them to live successfully and let somebody else come in. We are fed up as citizens. We are tired. We brought in people to administer us. They are lacking in competence, lacking in character, lacking in capacity, everything. Oil, which is the main source of our income, is now being stolen by the same people who are supposed to be custodians. What do you want us to do? Where do you start from? They own all the instruments of coercion which they could bring to bear on the situation. Yet, here we are.
I hope that's not saying that we're hopeless. Markway and Chamberlain.
Well, Colonel, you know, lots of people listening to you, mixed emotions, different perspectives. I mean, you've been there, you've been in service, so you understand what it takes to defend the territorial integrity of the country. And I mean, those days, I mean, any service person wouldn't see these kind of things, and if they are called to action, they will automatically just go there and address it. Such is the mindset. But looking at all of these things, with the experience that several service people have, because we have a lot of them in, you know, putting on the quote-unquote democratic garb now. So what do you think really is the missing link here? Because if they had all that capacity, why don't we see them being deployed? Or as some people may think, is there something being orchestrated somewhere? Are people just watching and waiting to let certain things happen? Because for many people, these things just don't add up the way they keep happening, because people know what's going to happen. And it appears as if we just let it happen.
Whole thing, where is the problem coming from? First and foremost, I'll see the problem as a leadership problem. Leadership in that is to say, no one seems to be taking control And no one probably takes ownership of the situation on ground. Simple. And that is the way I see it. Otherwise, when there are issues as this, relevant departments are supposed to, even be moved by virtue of the fact that, the boss up there is watching. And it's a boss who watches keenly and takes note. Unfortunately, we don't find such a situation here. So you find departmental heads, or yes, MDAs, ministries, departments, and agencies, just doing whatever they feel like doing, and nobody gives a damn. And nothing happens anyway. Nothing happens. No sanctions, nothing. This is the best administration to work in and work out freely with whatever you want to do. Whether you're carrying billions or doing whatever, you will go scot-free without anything. So in a nutshell, I place the problem, I source the whole issue or the whole problem coming from the absence of leadership. We don't have that firm hand that can really come out and be able to take charge of responsibilities. And neither have we properly, has that leadership, which is absent up there, neither has it been able to delegate powers to subordinates, serious-minded subordinates who can take charge. We just find pockets of, effectiveness. In the custom, we have good leadership. NDLEA, you have good leadership, and so on, just pockets. Nothing is happening in this administration. I'm sorry to say.
Even though they will always tell you that they think several things are happening in different areas, but a few question marks in some other areas. But do you see a role for citizens in this regard?
Yes, of course, as citizens, we're expected to play our role. And it bothers in most cases in we accepting that, look, we are stakeholders to whatever is happening, and we must be able to see that we make some contributions and seeing how we bring about a better Nigeria. So we'll go about playing whatever role we think we can play. See something, say something, and so on. But in most cases, when you see and say, and nothing follows up, it becomes so discouraging. So discouraging, my brother, okay? Nothing follows up. I don't want to start citing example with the situation where I come from in Southern Kaduna and all what we are suffering. It has gotten to a point where you begin to read government, what's it called now, connivance in the whole damn thing that's happening, okay? You begin to wonder, am I sure those who should be taking care of me, protecting my welfare on ground, are themselves not part of what is happening? I hope you know that as a government, when you turn your face away from what is happening, that alone in itself connotes some level of connivance, okay? There is some level of complicity. That is it. We bury in Southern Kaduna nearly every day. It's no big story anymore. We bury nearly every day. You could find out from anyone. Like Obiu said, go verify it.
Well, speaking about that, I mean, since you're going that way, one of the major ways that the citizens have to, quote unquote, address the challenge or do something they feel they can address it is through the ballot boxes. Now that we're approaching elections, and then INEC has introduced several, the beavers and all of those scenarios, and then we've seen an increase in people who expressed willingness to go in and participate and get their votes count. Are you optimistic this time, probably, if people do go out there, or whatever decision they take, who knows, things may just change for the better?
Yes, things may. I'm very optimistic about my country, despite whatever my ill feelings about what's happening, all right? And I have this belief that Nigeria is going to be great some other day again. If I may just add this, every Nigerian, every citizen out there who sees himself as a stakeholder should ensure by now that you have a PVC to effect the change we need. 2, you must know who actually you are voting for. Gone are the days of tribalism, gone are the days of religion. Nigeria is so sick and at the brink of collapse to a point that we just need somebody that can save us. We don't want to know where he's from anymore. However, like I keep saying about the situation in Southern Kaduna, and which I think reflects in some other parts of the country, we begin to see whereby authorities are themselves trying to be stumbling block on the part of the citizen to be able to exercise his franchise. And how do I mean? The sporadic attacks we have ongoing in parts of the country, specifically Southern Kaduna, is clearly indicative of the fact that there is a government input to it, be it at the subnational level, be it at the national level. There is a deliberate attempt to ensure that the people do not come out on 25th of February and be able to elect a government that is interested in protecting them. The status quo, which these guys in power in the state are deliberately wanting to maintain, is creating so much problems that today we continue to bury on a daily basis in Southern Kaduna.
Well, Colonel, you must admit that these are very, grievous allegations, and we hope that the Kaduna State government will respond. Not just the Kaduna State government, but also those who hold the levers of security, because the governor always says, I'm the chief security officer, but security is usually something that is, commanded from the Federal Capital Territory. So let us hope that there will be some response to how you feel about this, and not just in terms of refuting, but also in terms of deploying security personnel to ensure that things normalize and people are able to vote, especially in Southern Kaduna. That said, I'd like to go back a little to the situation of the Armed Forces Remembrance Day. And one of the things that struck me about the report which our correspondent Gloria put together is one of the widows there saying that it used to take a shorter time to process the benefits of those who have fallen, but that now it's taking much longer. Are you aware of any challenges that could be making this process a little longer? Because even as at this time last year, when we asked the Chief of Defense Staff, he said, it used to be something that was a problem, but that they've since taken care of that. We're wondering whether this is something that is a new development or something that was, that has been, what exactly influences the different time frames that family members of those who have fallen experience in being able to get the benefits that is due them?
Thank you, Maokwe. As a matter of fact, I really cannot say, but I know those women are being factual by what they say, because I am aware of several family members like that who feel so frustrated with the situation. Okay? I think some bureaucracy needs to be backpedaled and allow this thing to move at a faster pace. We are not even talking of what is the amount involved now. Because at the end of the day, frankly, Maokwe, when you look at what we are talking about, it's just sheer peanuts. Peanuts. And at times you even ask yourself, is this amount really worth all these pains? But that is the provision, statutorily. That is the provision. So there is even the need to revisit these amounts. The last time it was revisited, as far as I'm concerned, it was more cosmetic. All right? Because when these are statutory matters, they are not issues which can be revisited every year. So when you are trying to, revisit it with the intent to increase, you do it at a level that it will, when it takes the next 5-10 years again before that, before it calls for another revisit, at least this amount of money will be able to cater for people. The amount is so insignificant, so that those of them who are even, I would say, blessed to come from families that are well economically endowed, just abandon the thing and go about their business. This shouldn't be the case. It shouldn't be. It really shouldn't be. When we are talking about offsprings or siblings of veterans. I think we should show more care. More care. We are not showing enough care as a nation. We are not being appreciative enough of the role their husbands or their fathers played. No. I, as a living veteran...
Are you bothered about the let's say, the lack of understanding, or the fact that oftentimes when the Armed Forces Day, Armed Forces Remembrance Day, or the poppy, or the emblem, beg your pardon, because we don't use a poppy anymore, we use the emblem when it is launched, that it's only at a certain level we see this emblem. It doesn't look like there is a general understanding, or even, let's say, an acceptance on the part of the Nigerian people of what exactly this emblem stands for, and well, I say the need to wear it, perhaps in show of support, for at least for what it stands for. Is this something that bothers you as an ex-serviceman?
I must make this confession, that look, the average veteran out there is not happy with the Nigerian state. I repeat, the average veteran out there is not happy with the Nigerian state. He does not feel appreciated enough. Look at the security debarment allowance, which created so much noise and so on, which they have just commenced payment. You wish to see what is being paid to veterans. You will nearly ask, is this what all the noise has been about? If you are supposed to pay somebody a debarment allowance at the point of his exit from service, and you did not pay him, and the fellow we are talking about now exited maybe 35 years ago, when 5,000 Nigerian naira can buy you a brand new Peugeot car. Some of us are aware of all this. I think we were still alive then. Today, you want to calculate the man's debarment allowance based on 10% of what he was earning 35 years ago. What will 10% of that amount give you? Some of them are going home with 100,000, some less than 100,000. I'm telling you, we expect a situation where to make amends, you say, okay, let's use the current pay schedule. You left service as a sergeant. What is a sergeant earning today? You calculate based on that 10% of today, not 35 years ago. Why should we just sit down and become so inhuman to fellow mankind? Somebody should have thought and said, no, we've got to amend this. So that is what these chaps have been paid. And it's unfortunate. Those who are smiling home now are those who are retiring now in the last 2, 3, 4 years. Yes, you are really taking something reasonable. But those who trained you while you were coming in are weeping and wondering whether are we in the same military? That shouldn't be. Somebody somewhere should be hearing what I'm saying and take some line of action. But in this administration, nobody takes such actions. If you say this in some national television, definitely they will look into it. But here, nobody looks into it. Nobody gives a damn about you. Whether you feel appreciated or not, nobody gives a hoot.
With you raising these issues now, let's just hope that things will be different.
This is Nigeria, forget it.
Very quickly, I appreciate your concern, Colonel Stan-Labo, particularly when you talk about, some other issues that, as Marco has rightly put, should be giving attention to either by way of refutal or by deployment of security. This brings me to the Southeast. Very quickly, Colonel Stan-Labo, I'd like you to look at the Southeast critically in view of, what transpired early on at this administration when they reined in on, some form of internal insurrection that took the form of agitation for self-determination. Indeed, what is happening now is being said to have political undertones. But don't you think it has gotten to the level where, there is it should require some form of deployment of the military, to restore the peace that the Southeast is known for? Or do you see at the same stand back and let the Southeast boil, just so that it can amount to some political gains of some powers?
Thank you, Malcolm. The issue... oh, sorry, my dear. Okay. Thank you, Busola. The issue of the South is something that really touches me deep. Because I'm one of those few Nigerians who believe that since after the Civil War, we have not taken all the right steps to ensure that the family is back again. I'm referring to the Nigerian family. Good. The situation in the Southeast has aggravated to this level because of insensitivity of leadership. It has aggravated to this level because you have a leadership that looks only onto kinetic solutions to issues. If you ask me, I'll tell you the problem in Southeast is more or less political, not in terms of partisan politics. Political in the sense that, look, Mr. President, you are the father of all. Can you just gather the family together and ask those who feel aggrieved, what is your problem? All this IPOP or what have you, frankly speaking, oh, Jesus, these problems can be addressed. If you listen to Peter Obi when he talks about the issue of the Southeast, he tells you I will address that issue. All it calls for is for me to sit and discuss with them. As a president from your high top mountain, you come down low, sit down, talk with the IPOP, with the ENS, invite them over to the villa. Jesus Christ.
The question then is...
give us 1 week.
Well, the question then, Governor,
yes,
will be how sustainable that will be, given that, I mean, in the amnesty program of the previous administration, the Yaradua administration, took care of the problem, but it didn't completely eradicate the problem because the challenges of poverty and all of those things, the oil spill and the rest of them, they still exist in the environment. So having that conversation, having concessions, so to speak, for the Southeast, the agitators within Southeast, who are, as some people avow, are making life difficult for fellow Southeasterners. How do you see that really playing out? You have 30 seconds.
Some of the solutions that have come out so far, even plus the one you're referring to me have been mere palliatives.
Oh.
Yes. We could go far deeper than that. The Southeast issue calls for some restructuring. Can we just be serious with ourselves here? If we intend to better this country, we know what to do. We should stop playing all this pretense.
Well, let's just hope then that...
we should stop playing
I
all
mean,
this
I think you've given us one counsel, that is, we have to employ the right people in the right positions so that they can do some of those things that we expect them to do. This is an ongoing conversation, always an ongoing conversation.
Always.
Colonel Hassan Stan-Labo, former Army officer, thank you so much for your time and perspectives.
I appreciate, please. Thank you so much.
There's more after this break. Please stay with us. Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. We're turning our attention now to the Southeast in terms of the security, the politics, and more. We've got three gentlemen joining us this morning to weigh in on the matter. Here in the studios, Dr. Law Mefo, who is the spokesperson at Tuku Okawa Campaign Organization for Anambra State. Good morning. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Chamberlain. Thank you.
We will also have Senator Victor Ume, who himself is a senatorial candidate for the Labour Party in Anambra State, and then we'll equally be joined by Sly Eziokenwa, who is a national legal advisor for ABGA. He is also the Commissioner for Special Duties in Anambra State, so they will equally be on the program today. Well, Dr. Mefo, well, you know, when you talk about development in the Southeast, first and foremost is the security of it. There's several people who are concerned about what is going on. They can't place their finger on it, so quite a number of people are trepidated to even get to there. Recently, we saw the attacks in Imo and several other scenarios. In fact, in Anambra, they talk about politicking almost degenerating, if it hasn't already. So even though the parties did campaign
last week in that state. So what is your assessment of what's going on about security in the area?
The security situation in the Southeast is very disturbing, very unfortunate. I say unfortunate because I believe it's avoidable. You know, if you backtrack a little over a year ago, Southeast was the safest zone in Nigeria. You know, so what happened? Something happened between then and now. And Southeast all suddenly became the home of unknown gunmen and all that. And I would want to attribute the causes of all this to two essential factors. I believe that those in charge of the political situation in the Southeast haven't done well, particularly the governors. You take the case of Amotekun and Southwest as an example. It's supposed to be a template that should be modified and adapted to the situation in the Southeast. But that is not the case. Why? Because those who are in charge of political affairs of the Southeast played politics with it. That is number one. Number two, I think that the political actors and gladiators are actually accentuating what is going on. Take, for instance, the Anambra State situation. There are camps, physical camps, perhaps a dozen or more, put in place by these non-state actors. It took them time to establish those camps. Where was the state when this was going on? It couldn't have been done overnight.
Who discovered the camps?
The current governor has been able to unravel what is going on. And this is distracting him so much because he is, he's now tackling that as a headwind, without which he will not be able to settle and really implement the beautiful blueprint he has for Anambra State.
Why is it a distraction? Is that not part of why he was elected?
No. You see, if the situation was better handled before he came in, preemptive security measures are always better. When you have such red flags, you don't allow them to settle. You nip them in the bud. If the former governor of Anambra State, for example, Chiwuli Obiano, didn't become complacent in his second term, he wouldn't allow camps to be set up in Anambra State. And again, there is this spillover from Imo. You see, Hope Uzodinma hasn't handled the security situation in Imo also well. He hasn't. Because he has declared a kind of frontal war with some agitators. So it becomes positional warfare. And when it is too hot for them in Imo, they come into Anambra through Anambra South Senatorial District. That's precisely what is going on. So, we just have to, why this is very worrisome? The insecurity constitutes vote suppression. You know why? Fear. We saw it during the election of Soludo as governor of Anambra State. Only 112,000 Anambra State people elected Soludo as governor, in a place where you have 2.5 million registered voters. Something is responsible. Fear. People don't want to come out. If you allow this to escalate into, next to 1 month, the implication is that many people will not be allowed, will not be free to come out to exercise their franchise.
It's a little complex what is going on in the Southeast. There are those who say, this cannot be Southeasterners or routing this sort of havoc. They believe that, the crisis in the Southeast has been imported from where I'm not certain, but they think it's been orchestrated from the outside. I don't know what your view is on that.
See, the crisis, the insecurity in the Southeast, there are 3 to 5 perpetrators. Yes, we have foreign elements, no doubt. You may even have what we call the deep state, right? If you kill a soldier or a policeman, right, you don't expect the agencies to just fold their hands. They can also do something. They can even orchestrate certain situations as a way of getting back to you. But we have agitators who believe in armed struggle. Can we face this reality? Who believe in armed struggle? Who believe, for example, the Eastern Security Network is real. It's put in place to defend the Southeast. So where are they?
To defend the Southeast.
That's what they said they wanted to do.
But the people of the Southeast, whom they're supposed to, or whom they claim to be defending, are afraid of their
That's the problem
defense.
here. That's the problem here. You see, when you allow non-state actors to have reason to raise arms against the state, you have a problem. You know, one can say it's not exclusive to the Southeast. After all, you have full-blown terrorism in the Northeast particularly. You have bandits who have also grown into terrorism, full terrorism status in the South, in the Northwest. You know, you may say so, but then I keep saying that, you see, the insecurity we are facing in Nigeria, they are local. What is happening in the Northeast is not what is happening in the Southeast.
All right. Let's bring in Mr. Sly Ezeokenwa. He is the National Legal Advisor for ABGA, also a Commissioner for Special Duties in Anambra State. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Ezeokenwa, on this matter. What would your assessment be, because you are in government at the moment, about the development, insecurity, if you will, in the Southeast, and particularly more so perhaps in your state?
Well, thank you, Chamberlain, and my sister Malvin. Just like the guest in the studio rightly said, insecurity in the Southeast, you know, has been a funny issue for quite some time now. You know, it's not something that started now, and it's good he identified both the immediate and the remote causes of these issues. You know, bearing in mind the activities of the non-state actors. Can you put me back to that program? But then, as much as possible, try to dimension this thing, because when we talk within the context of what the government of Anambra State has done in trying to tackle insecurity. Of course, as you all know, before Governor Soludo came into office, in Anambra State, we have the Anambra South, the Anambra. And much of the local governments in Anambra South, bordering Imo State, parts of Abia, you know, they are almost overrun by these guys, as you know, so to speak. But then, the governor of Anambra State, Professor Charles Soludo, came in and tried as much as possible to tackle this thing head-on. First thing, because as much as you're trying to tackle the current issues affecting insecurity in Anambra State, we equally try as much as possible to get to the foundation of it, because these things didn't start today. And when Governor Soludo came in, the first thing he said during his inaugural address was to actually admit the fact that insecurity is a thorny issue. And you know, Professor Charles Soludo has been at the forefront of everything concerning the Ohanese Ndibo and the Southeast in general, in terms of, you know, everything concerning the welfare. If you recall, Professor Charles Soludo was the chairman of Ohanese Committee on Planning and Strategy, and that led to or culminated in the Ekweme Square Declaration, where the leaders of thought, so to speak, in the Southeast came together and articulated a 10-point agenda on what will bring lasting peace and solution to all the insecurity issues in the Southeast. The next was the setting up of the Truth, Justice and Peace Commission headed by Professor Chido Odengalo. This is a government that admitted, yes, insecurity in the Southeast or security situation in the Southeast is not where it is supposed to be. And the government has been committed day in, day out, committing resources, committing personnel. So, it's good we dimension these issues. And as much as possible, the situation we are now is not where we were like a year or 2 years back. The security system situation in Anambra State in particular has...
Labour Party, just a minute. Labour Party accuses you, your party, I mean, and they think that there isn't any justice in that accusation, that your party seem to be vandalizing, defacing, removing their campaign posters, and they think that that may degenerate a lot further from the peace that everybody likes to see, even the peaceful campaign of all parties in the state. What's going on with that?
You know, Chamberlain, I will say one thing. As much as possible, we do not need to play unnecessary politics with certain things, especially the security situation in the Southeast and Anambra State, if I may speak. It's totally unnecessary. There is nothing, absolutely nothing truthful about what they are saying. If you go to everything concerning adverts or outdoor advertising in Anambra State, we have an agency, and these things are regulated by law. Incidentally or coincidentally, the Anambra State Signage and Advertisement Agency was a board or an agency created by the presidential candidate of Labour Party when he was in office. The law was passed by the Anambra State House of Assembly in 2010 and assented to by then Governor Peter Obi in 2010. And the particular Anambra State, or what I may choose to call the Signage and Advertisement Agency law, makes provision, ample provision for outdoor advertising, and tries to create a distinction between normal adverts or normal spaces that you put on those billboards and political adverts. So these things are regulated by law. And Labour Party, as a party, is supposed to be law-abiding. They are supposed to operate within the ambit of the law. If you recall, one of the cardinal principles of the Soludo administration is the observance of the rule of law in terms of how we do things. It is no longer how it used to be, the old norm. Now, this administration emphasizes or hinges on rule of law. Governor Soludo, as much as possible, has tried to accommodate every political party within the context of this administration and the context of, yes. Can you hear me?
So, did they break any law?
Yes, that is the...
What law? What exactly did they do that amounts to law breaking? I think I lost. We can't quite hear you in the studio here.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Okay, go ahead. So, pardon me, we missed that point. So, what exactly did they do that was tantamount to law breaking?
Now, like I said earlier on, the governor of Anambra State has, as much as possible, opened up the space to the opposition to campaign. And even Labour Party will admit that Mr. Governor has been highly tolerant when it comes to everything about this politics in the build-up to the 2023 election. Mr. Peter Obi has been granted the space of the conference hall of the Anambra Government House on 2 occasions. So the issue here is an issue of entitlement. Labour Party feels entitled to everything in Anambra State without complying with the law. Now, the regulatory body, which is the Anambra State Signage and Advertisement Agency, has provisions for payment for outdoor advertisement spaces. So, one, these spaces are owned by practitioners. The billboards you see around the state, they are owned by practitioners. It is the signage agency collaborates or interfaces with practitioners. So, within the context of political advert, there are 2 payments that you need to make. The first one is the payment you are making to rent those spaces from practitioners. That is given. When you rent those spaces, it doesn't still stop the fact that you are supposed to pay the relevant or requisite advert rate to the signage agency.
Yeah, so, Mr. Kenwa, I understand you're trying to give us a background of what transpired, but I hope you also understand why I interject, because we need to know, they say they have images of agents of state removing and defacing their posters. So could you explain that? Did that happen? What law did they break if that happened? Okay, we'll just go on the break. We'll do for a break incidentally, but just give us a minute. We will be back and continue this conversation. Stay with us. Could you go ahead and you were going to tell us what exactly happened, why Labour Party's posters were removed? What law did they break?
Thank you very much. Like I said, we have the Anambra State Signage and Advertisement Agency law, which creates the body called the Anambra State Signage and Advertisement Agency. That law was passed in 2010, assented to by Governor Peter Obi then as the governor of Anambra State. Now, that law in Section 5 empowers the agency to regulate outdoor advertising, including political advertisement. And you will know, during every political era, political advert, especially posters, defaces the environment. So the agency, as a means of cleaning up the environment, tried to separate core political adverts from normal.
Okay, we seem to, you're trading in and out, and so we can't, we'll try and address that because we can't hear you here in the studios, so pardon me for that one. Well, yeah, I know, it's a challenge. Have you faced the same challenge in the state at the moment?
Well, I wouldn't think so because such a complaint hasn't come to us as a serious issue. So, I wouldn't
because they don't
that.
consider your party a threat to anything at all?
The PDP? You will ignore the PDP to your own peril. PDP is the...
PDP did not win in Anambra State, for instance.
The governorship or which?
The governorship.
PDP has never lost Anambra State or the Southeast in any presidential election since 1999. And it's the presidential election and the national elections that are our focus at the moment. We're not talking about governorship. And again, let me tell you, wait a minute.
Contested governorship and lost to
wait a minute. We know why we lost the governorship, and it's been addressed, to be able to engage better in the next election cycle. But the point here that you need to really take to bank is that PDP has never lost Anambra or the Southeast in the presidential election since 1999. It's very fundamental.
But the dynamics are different this year.
I agree. Yes, the dynamics. There are newer headwinds, and I believe that is what you are referring to as the dynamics being different. For example, the involvement of Peter Obi and Labour. Peter Obi is from Anambra State.
Indeed.
And they're good. So he's going to be a factor. There's no doubt about that. He's going to be a factor. But there are reasons why Peter Obi himself knows that it's going to be really tough for him to claim Anambra. I'll give you a reason. You see, I was at home during Christmas, and I took time to go around the communities. A lot of people know that Peter Obi is in the race, but they don't know that he has left the PDP. Do you see the problem here? They don't even, Peter Obi is a product of the PDP. He was on the ballot with Atiku Abubakar in 2019 as vice president. This is what the people know. Majority of the people, not just in Anambra and Southeast, in the country. And you see, to teach people the difference or differences in what you call party logos, it takes several election cycles. And Labour has never been there. By the time Peter Obi entered the Labour political party, Labour was not present in up to 10% of the electoral political space in Nigeria. And that's a fact.
So you're hoping to ride on the ignorance of the people?
Well, see, in politics, right? In politics, if whatever can help you, win fairly is okay. If you want to look at it from that perspective. It's not our duty to teach the people about the Labour legal, right? If they are mistaking Peter Obi for PDP, for me it's good, right? But that is not our main strategy. We are looking at activating the political structure of the PDP. PDP has been there since 1998. It has been on ground. Anambra State is a PDP state.
You're still looking at activating. I mean,
No. It's already
how many days to the presidential elections?
No.
If it's not activated
It's
right
activated.
now,
It's activated and running. It's activated and running. But we want to take it a notch higher. We want to drive down now, download the whole thing to the homes, right? That's why we launched what we call, is ward-based, community-based, trying to get to the people, to remind them where we left off as a political party at the national level in 2015, and why we have to go back to that.
What makes you think, Chief, that APGA will just watch you do that? Because they are the ones in the state right now.
Yes, we agree. APGA is also a headwind that we are, confronting.
So you have too many headwinds now.
Yes, 2 headwinds, right? We have already identified labor. APGA is also a headwind. But Anambra voters are very sophisticated. They know that APGA is not in this presidential election. For example, their candidate, Professor Madi, I'm from Anambra, but I don't know him.
It is
Did you get the
interesting
point?
that on the one hand, you credit them with being sophisticated. On the other hand, you say, oh, they don't even know what platform Peter Obi is running. So in other words, the candidate, Peter Obi, is an acceptable candidate to them. They have absolutely no problems with their son in the race. In fact, they intend to support him. It means that your candidate, the candidate of the PDP, is going to be a rather difficult sell to the people of Anambra.
It shouldn't be. You see, Peter Obi stands a chance in Anambra. No doubt. That's his state. Do you understand that? But for me, the PDP party structure in the state is something you cannot just wish away. That's a fact. And we have come up with a process that will revive everything PDP in Anambra State. And it's already working. For example, you have 326 awards in Anambra State. And we have put in place measures, processes that will ensure a minimum of 1,000 votes from each. That gives you a baseline of 326,000 votes.
Has your candidate gone
That's a minimum, irreducible minimum.
Has your candidate gone to Anambra to campaign yet?
Of course, yes. It was a very wonderful outcome. I was there, and the channels was there also. And Atiku's campaign in Anambra should be one of the finest. In fact, he himself confessed there and then that he was overwhelmed by the love, the outpouring of love, and the sheer number of people that came out to welcome him.
What is it promising the people? What is your candidate? What's the PDP promising the people of Anambra specifically and the Southeast in
Very
general?
beautiful question. You see, there are 2 things Atiku Okowa presidency, promises that resonates well with Anambra. The commissioner that spoke now talked about the 2018 gathering of Igbo elites, where they affirmed their position on Nigeria. The minimum demand of Igbo and Anambra is a restructured Nigeria.
All right.
And one more moment. Well, Atiku is pushing for a private sector driven economy. We are entrepreneurs. We are people embedded in commerce and industry. Such an economy, which Atiku promises, is
Let's check if,
specifically the kind of economy we are praying for.
We haven't heard Chief May at all on this one, so let's check with Chief May. Well, Chief May, thank you for joining us on the program today. Well, we have spoken to the APGA in the state, and they are of the impression that contrary to the narrative that Labour is pushing, that no such thing was done on the part of APGA, that Labour actually did violate the laws, and that's why things turned out the way it did for Labour Party.
Well, I think the gentleman that spoke was really comical with the truth. The signage law we are talking about has not been breached.
All right, Senator, well, the sound is coming in broken, so we'll try and address that. Apologies in that one. But in the meantime, let's talk to our colleagues in Lagos.
Yes, Dr. Mayfor. Thank you, Chamberlain. Dr. Mayfor, I'd like to come to you. You talk eloquently about the Southeast, particularly about Anambra. With so many political parties, not so many now, but the notable ones, APGA, the PDP, the All Progressives Congress, and the seeming divisions coupled with the unrest, don't you think that this would cost the Southeast its age-long agitation of producing the president, leadership at the center?
Yes, we even made allusion to that earlier, that insecurity in the Southeast is causing vote suppression in the zone. And if we allow it to continue without being addressed in the next 1 month, the outcome of a vote from that zone will not be so wonderful. And we have seen indications. I use the Anambra governorship election as an example, that, 112,000 elected a governor in a place where you have 2.5 million voters is something that needs to be addressed. For me, yes, your fears are founded. What has to be done is that the security agencies will really have to redouble their efforts. They need to reassure the people. And the way they go about it in the Southeast is as if they have left the Southeast to their own design. It's as if somebody is benefiting from the insecurity in the Southeast. And even the IGP of police, the army and all the other security agencies understand where I am coming from. They don't need to leave the Southeast to their own design, which seems to be the preponderance now. They need to tackle insecurity in the Southeast so that people will feel free to come out and exercise their franchise.
So if
That's exactly what the issues are here.
So if tackled in good time, do you think the Labour Party presidential candidate stands a good chance of turning in a good number of votes from that region of the country?
Well, you see, Southeast has always been the traditional homeland of the PDP. So that's it. And why we are asking the security agencies to deal with insecurity in the Southeast is to enable PDP reap from its traditional base.
So as somebody
we know that Obi will do well there also. But PDP structure there is far more superior.
Dr. Mayfor, so as somebody from the Southeast, you don't believe in the agitation for that region to produce a president from the country?
Another good question. You see, I was part of the people agitating for Nigeria president of Southeast or Igbo extraction. Yes, I was. But our political leaders did not concur with us. They threw open the presidential ticket of the PDP, particularly. And by so doing, they opened the door to gladiators like Atiku. He picked it. Since our political leaders have chosen Atiku, it's done for me. What concerns me now is post-2023. What will be the best outcome from Debo? You see, for me, if I were convinced that Peter Obi and Labour would win, I wouldn't be here. That's a fact. But I'm not convinced. You know why I'm not convinced? I have looked at Labour. Peter Obi is an excellent candidate, no doubt. In fact, if I could make him president, I would. But he is standing on a very flimsy, very weak platform. Do you know that I was looking at the analysis of candidates by Labour in this.
When you say he's a very good candidate, are you saying he's better than your candidate?
Good doesn't mean better.
No, but because if you had the powers, you would have made him candidate.
Yeah, but the fact remains that I don't have the power, and Atiku is in the frame.
But you say if you did, you would have.
Yeah,
which would mean that
it's not hypothetical.
Is a better candidate than the candidate of your party.
He's not a better candidate. You know why?
Why would you then have made him president if you had the powers?
I'm Igbo. I'm Anambra. Do you understand that? And he's good, really good. So I would make a candidate if I could. And when we were agitating for production of Nigeria president for the Southeast, we had Peter Obi in mind also. Do you understand that? But he left the PDP for Labour. And Labour is not on ground. Labour is not a platform to erect a presidential race. And
I'm sure that Senator Victor Omer would disagree with you very strongly. I see that you're back now, Senator. This is what Dr. Mefor has to say about your candidate. I'm wondering if you agree with him. You have been a member of ABGA. Now you're running on the platform of Labour Party. And you're also saying that you're facing some voter suppression in Anambra State. I mean, that is very difficult to come to terms with.
Yes, it's very unfortunate that we couldn't hook up to this program on time. I've listened to what they said, and I can tell you that they've been economical with the truth. The gentleman who appeared for ABGA said
oh dear.
I can tell you that that's an absolute lie, because the signage laws were not breached by candidates and the party. What they did was that through an executive order, the governor of the state imposed campaign fees on all the candidates, which you must pay before you campaign. It has nothing to do with the signage law. The campaign fees which they imposed, 10 million naira for any presidential candidate, 7 million naira for senatorial candidates, 5 million naira for House of Representatives candidates down the line. They imposed these fees. If you don't pay it to government, you cannot campaign in Anambra State. That is unconstitutional and illegal. They cannot prevent any duly nominated candidate of a political party from canvassing and seeking for votes. It depends on the manner you want to do it. INEC, that is the regulatory agency, that is the child responsibility of conducting elections. It's only part, it remains, and the Electoral Act itself. There's no place in the Electoral Act or the INEC guideline where it is stipulated that any candidate that has been nominated will pay a state government campaign fees before you embark on your campaigns. This is the unconstitutional action they have taken. On the issue side, with all laws, like myself, I put my adverts through Advertising Professional Council of Nigeria registered media. They pay signage fees to the Anambra State signage agency, and they have been doing that. So the one that caused problem now was the advert they placed over the pedestrian overhead bridge across on Federal Highway, and they went to remove it because the governor said it is a strategic location. Labour Party cannot have it. That Anambra State belongs to ABGA. In fact, he did this on the 8th of January in a meeting where he said he will not have it. He was reminded that advert was under a contract, that he cannot revoke. He said he will revoke it.
Well, Mr. May, most certainly one will expect that at the end of the day, just 1 second, that at the end of the day, the Anambra State government will, step in and, say their own part, tell their own part of the story so that there is that balance, even though we understand that Mr. Sly Okenwa has spoken for a bit. But let me ask Dr. Mefor a question. I mean, you've spoken quite copiously about insecurity in the Southeast, and of course it applies to everyone, but we're running out of time. I just want to ask you, it's interesting that so far, having been speaking about insecurity, no one has mentioned Ibubeagu, the program that was initiated by the Southeast governors. Is that to say that the program has failed, it's inefficient, or there are other things to consider?
Ibubeagu was conceived by the Southeast governors, even along with Ohaneze and other critical stakeholders, as an intervention agency, regional based, to help the Southeast, and is modeled after Amotekun of the Southwest. Now, the Chairman of Southeast Governors Forum, Governor Devo Mahi, did not allow that agency to take off. He did it. What they now did was to, put something, at state levels, only in 2 states, as a matter of fact. He put together a body in Ebonyi and called them Ebobago. And Hope Uzodinma did the same thing in Imo, called them Ebobago. That was not the original concept. So, to answer your question more directly, there is no Ebobago in place in the Southeast. Whatever you see that goes by that name is an imitation, an ugly imitation of the original concept. Because it's not a regional outfit like Amoteco is to the Southwest, which was our original intention. So, whoever wants to understand what happened to that original idea should ask Governor Dave Umahi what he did with Ebobago.
All right. As I said, we're trying not to be watered those days, but apologies, we're not able to get Chief Ume. The connection just seems to be fading in and off. Well, Chief, we'll just try one more time because the connection really is challenging. We don't know if it's improved now. Can you hear us at all?
I'm hearing you well.
Okay, we were about to just wrap up. Could you just give us your concluding thoughts?
Yeah, what I'm saying is that they should leave the political space free without any restrictions against people.
All right. Mr. Sly, are you still there with us?
To what Chief Ume said. Hello? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, Chamberlain. It is unfortunate. It is unfortunate for Chief Ume to make that kind of allegation against the person of the governor of Anambra State. I can tell you categorically that there was no executive order. Labour Party has been campaigning freely in Anambra State. Mr. Peter Obi just last week held a rally in All Saints Cathedral on Onitsha, and then held a meeting with all the traditional rulers in Anambra State Government House. Yes. So how do you talk about Anambra State imposing a fee for people to campaign? There is no such thing in Anambra State.
Signage law in Anambra State.
The only problem we have is
gentlemen, we'll sort this out and get both of you back probably and make it a lot clearer so the people can make out what both of you are saying, because you seem to be insisting on your various points. And incidentally, Dr. Mefo doesn't have any challenge. The party doesn't have any of such challenge. But we have to end at this point. We have to thank you, Dr.
Thank you for hosting me.
Thank you very much indeed, as well as Chief Victor May and Sly Ezeokenwa. Thank you all for your time today on the program. Well, we have to draw the curtains as well. Not sure we'll have time to take your messages, but we do appreciate you all. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. I'm Chamberlain Uso.
We see your messages, Olagunju Oladele, Professor Enakena, Law Alpha Cross, Festus Akimboyewa. Thank you so much. Okay, you see them. I don't know if we can take them. Thank you so much for writing in this morning and for being a part of the program. I'm Mark Welgun Yusuf.
Yes, thank you for sharing your morning with us. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo.
And I'm Ayo Makinde. Don't forget, you should get your PVC. Have a wonderful day and a lovely week.